Welcome to the Power in Motion podcast, the show for women who want to develop a kinder relationship with their body so you can feel healthy, happy, and confident without restricting food, doing torturous exercise, or constantly worrying about the number on the scale. I'm your host, Kim Hagel, size-inclusive fitness specialist and certified non-diet health and life coach specializing in body image. This podcast is here to provide weight-neutral, health at every size aligned information and coaching on sustainable habits and mindset shifts so you can feel your very best in the body you have right now. Let's lace up our runners and go for a walk while we chat. Hi, welcome back to the Power in Motion podcast. I have a question for you today. Do you love your body? Maybe you do, maybe you don't, maybe you're not sure. As the creator of Love Your Body, Love Yourself, today's guest helps women access their yes to that question. Marla Mervis Hartmann joins us on the show today to talk to us all about loving your body and loving ourselves, but not in the way that we typically think about loving our body, where we try to convince ourselves to love and approve of all our so-called flaws. Rather, Marla speaks about loving yourself as an action and something we can do even if we don't like how we look. Inside our interview, Marla shares her own story of body acceptance and eating disorder recovery and how spiritual practices such as Reiki played an important role in her journey. She even shares a simple 2-minute Reiki practice that you can try at home to help you cultivate a sense of self-love. Marla's new book, Befriend Yourself, is available now for pre-order at the link in the show notes, as well as the free emotional eating course that she mentions in the interview. So a little bit about Marla. After experiencing years of dysfunction in relation to food, exercise, and body confidence, Marla Mervis Hartmann transformed her life through the radical act of self-compassion and friending herself. She has since used her experiences to help empower people as they choose appreciation for their bodies, honor themselves through nourishing lifestyle choices, and cultivate confidence along the way. Currently, Marla lives in Maui with her husband Olaf and son Aspen, where she works full-time as a professional coach, TEDx speaker, author of Befriend Yourself, and Living Light Reiki master and instructor. Without any further ado, let's get into the interview with Marla. Marla, welcome to the Power in Motion podcast. I'm so excited to meet you and to dig into this conversation with you today about your journey with body image and disordered eating and how you found that becoming your own best friend was the key to lasting recovery. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. This is such a pleasure to be here with you and with all your listeners. So thank you.
Oh, well, it's truly my pleasure. So why don't you get us started by just telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are now?
Yeah. So my name is Marla. I am the creator of Love Your Body, Love Yourself, and I support women to feel good in their body and freedom with food. And it's been quite a long journey, right? These bodies of ours, even when you're considered normal, it's still a ride, right? And it's so normalized, this disordered eating and negative body image, that for a lot of women it has to get really, really bad in order anyone to take like a look at it and to dive into it. And for me, it was like this slow burn of more and more negativity, right? I think it started at a very young age when I had just had a lot of attention on my body. I was a curvy, sexy little girl, right? So I'd get comments and I remember thinking, you know, those moments where you remember things, like there are these little snapshots. It's like, oh, my body matters. Better keep this up, right? So it became that, and becoming a woman and then being an actor and a dancer and just really feeling that my body needed to shrink and be a certain size. And then I added that to a lot of emotional stuff, and the way that I dealt with emotions was through dieting, was through over exercising. The answer was control.
Oh, yeah.
The answer was control. And also I'm still fighting the good girl, right? Like I am a good girl, right? I'm a little child. Don't make waves. That's what my mom always says. Mom did make waves, right? And it's that inner rebel. It's like, I am not going to eat that food, or I'm going to shove as much food in my mouth. You want me to eat healthy? I'm going to eat la rah rah, right? Like the
Mhm.
the rebel towards myself, the fight against myself. So, I hit so many rock bottoms, but I would say that one of the darkest nights of the soul for me was when I realized that it had nothing to do with my body and my food.
Mm. Do you
When
know what triggered that thought that this wasn't actually about your body?
when I had a dark night of a soul, and this was after like eating so much and going into my bed at night and being like, my life is like this, like cold night, New York City, in my apartment, feeling like this is my life.
Mhm.
And I will always struggle with food and I will never be free. And I feel that so deeply inside me when I say that.
Mm.
And and then I was like, and then, it's that moment. I'm sure a lot of people can, it's like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to pull all the willpower and I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to get my body to this size and I'm not going to eat this food. And I did that and I hit that number and
Mhm.
I did happen. And my life was awful.
I
The
don't mean
work.
laugh, but just the way I get it. I get it. I've been there.
And then I was like, oh my gosh, this has nothing to do with my body and food. And then that's when I was like, okay, now I'm in recovery. So then I'm in recovery for years and years. And I still wasn't able to fully let go. And I remember this moment where I heard God speak so clearly in my head, let go, Marla. I got you. I got your body. I got your food. And I knew that was the answer. I'm like, this is the answer. This is the answer to to peace. This is the answer. Let go. Be at peace. And I still couldn't do it, Kim.
What do
And
you
it was
think got in the way of you letting go?
I was willing to have faith in so many parts of my life. I was really willing to surrender. I was willing to let God, let life, and this part I'm like, there was so much fear that if I let go, I am going to be fat, right? And at that point, having more flesh on my body was like the scariest thing. It was letting go of an identity. It was letting go of everything, right?
Because what would it mean about you if you got
It
fat?
means
We're using air quotes here.
right, yeah, exactly. It means that I wouldn't be loved.
Yeah.
Means that I wouldn't belong. It meant so many things I didn't even know until later, right?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
The thing about it is, it's not like I grew up in a family that was like like my mom ate whatever she wants. She never talked about our bodies. You know what I mean? Like it
Uh-huh.
was not an environment where I ever felt unloved.
Uh-huh.
It's just, but I got attention for my body. And
Right.
so sometimes it's not about not having attention. It's about having attention.
Yeah,
To that,
and whether that attention is positive or negative, because I've heard it both ways, right? Whether you receive like comments about your body that it looks good or it what people want to see, or they tell you that it's wrong and you should change it. Either way, we internalize there's a right way to look.
exactly.
And
Yeah. And I don't come from big numbers. Like when I was my super skinny, I was I was skinny for me, but I wasn't like I wouldn't like make you wouldn't walk by me and be like, oh, she's anorexic or something's wrong with her. Like I never got to that point. And
Mhm.
I work at a recovery center here in Maui, and it doesn't matter. These girls are all sizes. It
Yeah.
doesn't the disease does not show up in super skinny or super lots of extra, extra in quotes flesh. Like it doesn't matter what the body looks like. The craziness,
Yeah, and I think that's a common misconception is that eating disorders have a certain look or they must be like emaciated to have an eating disorder. I think that's one of the most harmful misconceptions out there about eating disorders.
Oh my gosh. Yes, for sure. No, I would say that some people around me would make comments around it. And when people ask me like, well, what can you do to support people who you know in your life that are in pain? And I can remember a friend of mine, and I completely dismissed her. And I've known her since she was born, right? We grew up next to each other, and I came home from being gone for years and being gone for a while. And she looked at me and she's like, "Are you okay?
Mm.
You look really thin." I'm like, fine. Yeah, I feel great. All right. Yeah, right. And those things where is even as parents, like we like, oh, my kid doesn't listen to me. I still have my mom's voice in my head telling me things, right? Like we do hear truth. We
Mhm.
hear that. It goes in, it slices. It may take some time,
Mhm.
but he said that to me.
You felt
It
seen.
I felt seen. I felt my pain felt seen, even though I
Mhm.
didn't want to believe it. It's like, no, this is good. This is what I'm supposed to look like, right?
Mhm. Mhm. So this fear of letting go and letting your body be the size and shape that it wanted to be, what finally allowed you to do that?
I think it's a dance, Kim. I mean, I was doing it. I mean, yes, I had people to support me. I had mentors and coaches, but they were like bringing things in. I was in 12 step at that early part of my recovery, but I had to piece things together on my own. Like I feel like what's so great about this time is that there are a lot of people like you and I sharing this message.
Mhm.
There weren't podcasts, there weren't people talking about positive body image. They were just talking about dieting or getting
Mhm.
fat, right? And so I had to I had to go back and forth. I had to go into faith for a while and then go back, and then faith for a little longer and then go back, right? So I had to build a muscle, and I think that that's okay. It's like it's working with the nervous system. How does the nervous system feel? It feels safe right now. Oh, now it doesn't, right? So we're really unwinding a lot. So I find that when we are struck with recovery, that's when we feel like, oh my gosh, I lost it. I'm back on the bandwagon. Oh my gosh, it's gone, right? It's knowing that it's cyclical. It's knowing that it's like, oh no, I feel good for a while, and then I may be back in it, but maybe it's only for a week rather than a year, or a day rather than a month, or
Yeah.
an hour rather
Yeah.
than, like it
Yeah.
goes slower and slower. And at
Mhm.
this point in my life, I am aware that my body and food are the way that I know when I am out of alignment.
Mm.
They're
How's that?
well, they're so we all have coping mechanisms.
Mhm.
Every one of us has them. Mine is food and body stuff. So when I start thinking about food too much, when I
Mhm.
start looking in the mirror and being like, ew, I'm like, okay, what's going on here, Marla? There's something underneath the hood here.
Oh, I love this. So it's a clue
It's a
to
clue.
something else that's going on rather than a belief that that's something that's true and you need to fix.
Right, and I call
Uh,
it my flag. So what would happen is it would all of a sudden red flags, right? Like, oh my gosh, like I'm being so mean to myself. I'm so how I can't stop these thoughts. I can't stop. Not that's a red flag to me, like something's
yeah.
up. But I like to catch them when they're pink. I,
I love that.
when they're not so intense that I can be like, okay, this right here needs to be taken care of, because if it isn't, it's going to come so full. It's going to be so much in me that I'm going to be like, where did this come from? It's like, there were signs all along the way.
Mhm.
I was either, not able to stop eating, or, I mean, it shows up in so many different ways for me. It's like overeating or not wanting to eat, or, comparing myself to others, or, all these little things. It's like, get in check, right?
And what do you find are some of the triggers? Like when the pink flags start coming up, what other types of things are going on in your life that are the behind these thoughts?
I find that they can even be like, I mean, of course, it usually has nothing to do with it. It's usually like something in my relationship or something in my work or me putting myself out there and then feeling like vulnerable or feeling like maybe not seen or like a failure.
Mm.
And they're not huge. They're not like huge things lots of times.
No,
It could just,
no.
I feel like people will say, well, I've had a lot of people say to me, well, I don't know why I'm like this. I don't have any huge trauma in my life. It's like, it doesn't matter. We have all these little moments. If we don't know how to deal with them with love and compassion for ourselves, they just start to build up.
Mhm. And we're often not taught how to handle our emotions, right? So, yeah, they might seem like little things, but they trigger emotions in us that we're not exactly equipped to handle or we don't handle in the moment. So we
Yeah.
fixate on our body and we fixate on food.
Yes, exactly. And I was just flashing on a moment with my son in the car, and he came back from a really long play date that didn't go the way he wanted. And he just was like, "Uh," and I'm like, sometimes it's good to just cry that out, like get that out of your body. And it was kind of funny because he was like, no, I'm okay. I'm like, no, cry, cry. Right. We're laughing. But it's just like the acknowledgement that giving him permission, like that's important. Like if you don't let that go, that can build up. So let's just let it go. Right.
Hmm.
So it is so important. I'm such a believer of leaning into those moments where it's like, I think we bypass those moments so many times. Don't make a big deal out of it. Don't make
Mhm.
a big deal out of it. I'm not going to get angry about that, or I'm not going to be upset about that. And I'm a firm believer in like, wow, that really affected me. I'm going to get in my car and cry for 30 seconds. And I'm like, okay, now I can let it go because the charge is still there. So it's not about not allowing the charge to be an emotional experience. Allow the charge and then move forward. Don't bypass that step because that charge stays there. And then that's when you're going to want to shove your face full of food.
Mhm.
Charge is still there.
Yeah. And we tell ourselves we shouldn't feel that charge. Like, don't be so silly. There's no reason to be upset. And like, just get over it. And we say all these things to ourselves, but that keeps it in.
It's okay. I mean,
Mhm.
that's what we have to learn how to do it, right? And we have
Mhm.
to work around these things,
Ah,
right? We have to
yeah.
have someone to share all these silly things that we think are silly, right? That's sometimes connected to really old stuff.
Big stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Now I know that that's part of what you do. And so do you have any tips or tools to help with emotions and emotional eating as an adjunct to that?
Yeah, well, so if we're talking about the emotional eating and we're talking about emotions, and so we've already kind of alluded to some of these steps, which are when you are feeling emotional, you feel it. And when you notice that you're emotionally eating, or and I say emotional eating, but that could be emotional dieting as well.
Good point.
Yeah. That could be emotional obsession about your food, where you're
Mhm.
always spinning about what you're going to eat and you can't stop thinking about food. So emotional eating is a large, depending on how you cope with food, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
What's the underlying layer? What's the underlying layer? That's the emotional piece. But I also feel that the way that we can deal with emotional eating is really setting ourselves up with a lot of self-care. And I know that self-care term gets so thrown around and it's just like, oh, bubble baths and whatever. No, but I mean like moments, moments of connection with myself, moments of saying yes to myself, moments of taking a breath, pleasure, slowing down, looking around, right? I've been recently, I'm doing the artist way right now. I don't know if you know that from Julia Cameron. It's
No.
your listeners may know what I'm talking about, but it's a whole 12-week program. But anyway, in the program, there's a week where you're supposed to stop listening to all media, books, and clear your head.
Mm.
I feel like I am like this, like I just want to bring in more and more and more information. And it's like, sometimes we need to hear our own thoughts.
Yeah.
But when we're quiet, when we're in the car and we're not talking to anyone and we're not listening to anything and we're allowing for our own wisdom, for our own way, I think but our emotional eating comes up because there's so much chaos and so much stress. And sometimes it's being with ourselves. And that can be scary.
Well, I was going to say, for those of us who have body image issues, being with ourselves and caring for ourselves can be hard because often we think we're not worthy of love and care in that way. So maybe kind of expand on how body image affects our relationship with ourselves and maybe even other people, and what steps can we take to nurture a more compassionate relationship, one with
Right.
ourselves and also with others.
Well, one of the things that I like to do is I like to think about the difference between liking and loving. In this world of body love, body image, there's this like, your body, right? My business is called Love Your Body, Love Yourself. I mean, how triggering is that, right? But it's like, okay, so here's the difference. We don't have to like our body. We don't have to look in the mirror and like what we see. We don't have to like it all the time. Sometimes we may, but there's opportunity to still show up with love, to still be kind, to still not say mean things, to still befriend our body, become friends with our body, be respectful, not shove food in our mouths, just be mean, not listen to our hunger cues. So if we think about it, we do this a lot, right? And this may help you in your relationships as well. Like, think about the closest person in your life. You may not like them all the time, but you do love them, right? Like, think about your parents. Sometimes you may not like them, but there's still a way, there's still a love, there's still this innate care that you can't almost help to have. And that's what we're nourishing. That's what we're nurturing. To be able to differentiate, like, okay, it's true. Like, the acceptance, the body acceptance, maybe today, I don't like my body at all. Like, not liking it, feeling uncomfortable. And when we can get into that truth and allow ourselves to have that truth without making it wrong or right. And it's not even about like going, and I'm saying like now you have permission to go and to put yourself down about it. I'm talking about base level. This is how I feel today.
Yeah.
Done. Now, how are you going to show up with that? How are you going to love yourself and care for yourself? And you want to jump in there?
No, carry on. I'm hanging on it.
Yeah, so that's really helped me. That's helped me in those moments where I look in the mirror and I've said, I don't like that. I'm like, the voice in my head is like, well, what are you going to do about it, Marla? You're leaving the house, right? This is your body today.
Yeah.
Right? Or like the other voice is like, what are you going to do? Diet? Oh,
right.
you're gonna.
I was gonna say that, right? When you said, what are you gonna do about it, Marla? Like, that's what we're taught, is like, you have these thoughts, fix it by fixing yourself, right? But you can just go, I'm allowed to feel this way, and then show up and be nice to myself.
Yeah, and well, for me, it's like, what are you gonna do? Diet like that's ever helped?
Yeah,
like has it ever really helped? Right? Like, it may help for a month. It may help for 2 years. It may help for a day because you feel like you're in control of something, but it's a slippery slope. It's not the answer. And the more we're on this road and we're really looking at it, and we really want to see the truth. I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, you must be on the road for wanting truth. Otherwise, you would be on some sort of learning about your calories and all of that.
Yeah.
Right. So we're, preaching to the choir here a little bit. Like, you know that there's another way. There has to be.
Yeah. What I'm hearing is a whole lot of self-compassion, right? And at the end of the day, like, self-hatred and believing that you're wrong and trying to fix yourself just keeps you in this cycle of like defeat, right? Constantly beating on yourself and trying these things that are miserable and make you feel awful, and like just reinforces this belief that you're a failure and you're no good, right? But when we can meet ourselves with kindness.
Yeah, and even in that, right? Even in like, even when I'm in it and I'm being so mean to myself, if I can say to myself, I'm so sorry, but I'm so, it's like I'm being compassionate to the uncompassionate part. I'm so sorry that I'm doing this again. I'm so sorry. I'm so mean to myself. Right? Because even when we're in that place, like I definitely went through a period of time where I'm like, I was so mad at myself. Like, really, Marla, this is what you did with your life? Like, evening of time lost, the anger of yourself. You are that vain, right? You're that vain to give up that much energy in your life. And I'm like, I wasn't vain. I was sick.
That's a really important distinction, right? And even having compassion for that part of you. I remember feeling that way too when I gave up dieting and obsessive exercise. I was so resentful of all the time I wasted and all of the money that I spent and like things that I missed out on. And now I'm a lot more compassionate to that part of me who just thought that's the only choice I had.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And for
Yeah.
all the, they're like, right, if that's where you are right now, like,
Mm-hmm.
we get it. We
Mm-hmm.
feel, and maybe it's just an ounce of giving up today, maybe a bit more tomorrow, and then maybe you grip on the next day. But it is that slow unwind of this and really letting go of diet culture and really calling out when diet culture is in your face.
Yeah, see it for what it is. Marla, I know that Reiki and spirituality have played a big part in your recovery. Can you share with us a little bit about that and how they've specifically helped with your relationship with food and body?
Yeah, I would say that that has been really the pinnacle of my healing my relationship with my body and food. So when I was early on in recovery, I was at a support group and a woman was giving her literally had her hands on herself, smiling and loving herself. And I was disgusted. I was like, "'Cause she loving herself blatantly, right? Like, dare she? Dare she? Literally." But I went up to her afterwards. I'm like, "What were you doing?" She's giving myself Reiki. So for those of you who are new to that, what Reiki is, it's a spiritual practice. It's also a healing modality where you put your hands on yourself or others, and it's the energy of unconditional love. So it releases stress physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually so that you can heal yourself, so you can be who you are. So here I found this beautiful healing energy that had me find that compassion that I wasn't able to give to myself. And it's not like a bang you over the head sort of experience. It's like a slow burn of love. I, I was a self-help junkie where I was like, there's something wrong with me. I need to heal. When I heal this part of me, then I can be worthy to love myself. And what I found from diving into this spiritual practice, and I'd always been someone who was very much longing for God and interested. And this gave me something tangible that I could bring into my body. It was also a way to deal with stress. It's like, oh, okay. Let me put my hands on myself. Let me just take a moment and allow this energy in. I've been teaching for over 20 years.
Wow.
Well, and in what I've found within myself and within those who I share and teach this is it opens up our capacity to love, to receive. So we often say we want things in our life, but we don't actually have the capacity to hold that. We don't have the belief system. We don't have the nervous system. We don't have even the way to do that. And so this system, and like I said, it is the energy of unconditional love. And when we know unconditional love is that acceptance, it's that compassion. It is what heals. But for me, it was allowing me when I talk about like the letting go of control. And through Reiki, I got to see, and through a lot of these practices, these self-care, breath, yoga, and I use those terms kind of widely, like I got to find who I really am. Like who's actually Marla without the idea of what I think I'm supposed to be. Right. And how can I be with myself in this really loving, loving way? So I share a lot about this And I share a lot about these moments where it's like, I can't. I do not know how to do this. I don't know. I'm down on my, like, I don't know another way. Those are the moments where we can call in something higher than ourselves, right? And so for those of you who do have a practice, a spiritual practice, or you do have a relationship with spirit, source, God, nature, right? These are the moments to call that in. And if you don't, that's okay, because you know what love feels? It is the energy of love. And there is a force, especially in those moments where it's really dark. We know there's a force of love out there, right? Someone's feeling love. The sun is pouring down on us. And that's what we call in. And so there's a whole way of doing that and practicing that and being with that. And I have found it to be so important for my recovery. Yeah.
For those who are interested in trying this on, is there a simple practice or approach that you can share with our listeners today that they can just experiment with?
Yeah. So what I would say is put one hand on your heart and one hand on your solar plexus or your belly. And literally close your eyes. We call this the universal position for Reiki, and it's balancing your upper centers and your lower. And imagine and just feel and sense that you're holding yourself and that you're loving yourself. And feel and imagine that love is pouring from your hand into your body. And notice and sense that the energy all around your body. And imagine it or feel it or sense it. And imagine that the space around you is holding you in love. And you can expand that to feel the heavens above you and feel the earth below you, all holding you. And this is how we become friends with ourselves. Mm.
It took less than 2 minutes. And
Right?
Right? And I felt instantly calm, even just by holding myself. Just having hands on your body helps bring you out of your head and quiet those thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I've noticed is like bringing my hands onto parts of my body that I don't like.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, let's bring some energy there because we get those parts off. A lot of times that's our belly.
Right.
The energy the most, right? We cut them. So bringing your hands on there and bringing some attention there can be helpful.
Oh, thank you for sharing that tool with us. That is really nice. So you are working on a book, or you're
Yes. So
finished the book. The book is done. The book is ready to be birthed into the world.
Tell us about it. Yeah. So my book is called Befriend Yourself, and it's finding freedom with food and peace with your body so you can live your life. And it's my journey along with a lot of tools and a lot of support. So it's real, it's raw, it's funny, it's authentic. It's hopefully going to meet you exactly where you are, bringing in a lot of the components we're talking about today. So I'd love to share that all with you. And for those of you who are listening to it during the pre-order stage, if you pre-order it, we have a lot of great bonuses and gifts for you as well. So
ooh, that is exciting. So we are releasing this podcast at the time of the pre-order. So that means you need to act now. The link for Marla's book is in the show notes. All the places where you can grab that will be in the show notes. So please do that. Is there anything else that's pressing on your heart today, Marla, that you want to share with our listeners before we sign off?
yeah, I would like to invite everyone to check out, if you are struggling with emotional eating, I have a free course.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, so it's really thorough. I feel like it's very thorough, right? As much as a free course without sitting in front of me can be, right? Which is totally open as well for you if you need that extra support. But it's called Breaking the Cycle of Emotional Eating. And so I'll make sure that you have that, Kim, so we can offer it to the listeners.
Oh, you have just shared so much goodness with our audience today in the practice that you shared with us and in the free tools. And I know your book is going to be highly valuable too. So Thank you for your generosity and for sharing so much wisdom on the show today. It's really appreciated.
Thank
And
you.
it's a pleasure. Before we leave, can you just remind our listeners where they can connect with you and follow you if they want to stay in your world?
Yes. loveyourbodyloveyourself.com. You can also find me on Love Your Body, Love Yourself Always on Instagram, or my name on Facebook, which I'm quite on there a lot too.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today, Marla.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into the Power in Motion podcast today. If you love what you're learning here, then I invite you to take the next step of embodying these concepts into your own life so that you can live your healthiest, happiest life and never again feel held back by your body. Coaching is the fastest, most efficient pathway to taking what you know in your head to actually applying it and seeing results. Whether you're looking to make changes around movement, food, body image, or all three, I'm here to help you nurture a kind, respectful, and trusting relationship with your body so you can feel your very best. Click the link in the show notes to book a free consultation, and together we'll uncover what's getting in the way of you having the results you want. You'll leave this call knowing exactly what you need to work on, and together we'll explore whether one of my coaching offers is a good fit for you. I can't wait to meet you.